Hello, this is Mr. Henry, and welcome to lesson 13.5. In this lesson, we're going to analyze surveys and samples. The essential question says, how do I identify populations and sampling methods? Before we move on to that, let's talk about our get the goof here. It says a bag contains 4 yellow marbles, 3 blue marbles, and 5 red marbles. You randomly draw a marble, replace it, and draw another marble. What is the probability you draw a red marble and then a yellow marble? So, since you're taking a marble out and you're replacing it, this is an independent event. So let's see, probability of getting a red and then a yellow. Probability of getting a red is 5 out of 12, so that's correct. The probability of getting a yellow would be 4 out of, well, if you took the marble out and you put it back, there's still 12 marbles in that bag. So then you'd multiply together, and you get 20 over 144, and that simplifies down to 5 over 36. Divide top and bottom by 4. And then that would be done. We have a bit of vocab here today. The first of them is a random sample. A random sample is when every member of a population has an equal chance of being selected. So that would be, for example, picking a marble out of a bag, picking a student from a classroom. Just if everybody has an equal chance of being picked, that would be a random sample. The next vocab word is a stratified random sample. That's when a population is divided into distinct groups and members are selected from each group randomly. So this might be, for example, if you separate the class into boys and girls and you pick one boy and one girl. Not everybody has an equal chance of being selected because there could be more boys or more girls. Or if you separate the marbles into distinct color groups, you pick out one yellow, one red, and one blue, that would be another example of a stratified random sample. The next is a systematic sample, and a systematic sample is when a rule is used to select members of the population. So that's when you use a specific rule. For example, maybe you give a sticker to every 5th student who asks a question. That would be systematic. Or when the police stop people for a DUI, they can't pull over every single car, so they might stop every other car or every 3rd car, but they have to do it in a systematic way. Okay. The other 2 vocab words we have are, first of them is a convenience sample, and a convenience sample is for only members of the population who are easily selectable or who are easily accessible. So, for example, if you're doing a survey, you might ask your friends because you're easy to just talk to your friends and they're right there. Or if you're doing a survey at a drugstore, just the people who are walking into the store, just the people who are right there easily for you to get to. And the last one is a self-selected sample, and that's where members of the population select themselves by volunteering. So this one is a strictly almost volunteer basis where the people don't have to do the survey, but maybe they want to. Okay, so let's take a few minutes and we're going to talk about these different sampling methods. So we have here a little scenario. It says the owners of a company with several factories conduct a survey to determine whether employees are informed about safety regulations. Okay. At each factory, 50 members are chosen at random to complete the survey. So first we want to identify the population and the sampling method. So a population is who has the chance of being asked. Well, in this case, the people who have the chance of being asked would be all the company's employees. So population would be all the employees. Every employee across all the buildings have a chance of being selected. And in this case, the sampling method the sampling method would be stratified because they're saying they're going to ask people from each factory. So one factory might have 100 people, one factory might have 500 people. So not everybody has the same exact chance of being selected. So this would be a stratified random sample. So a stratified random sample is when you're selecting people from distinct groups. As here we're having distinct different factories. Okay. Now, letter B. Suppose the owner surveys every third employee who entered work on Monday. So would everybody have an equal chance? Not quite. This would be a systematic because there's a certain rule of how people are getting picked. So again, this is a systematic sampling method. So I'll call it a systematic sample because there's a certain rule because you're picking every third employee. Letter C. What type of sample would it be if they surveyed random employees as they left work on one day? Well, if they just surveyed random people as they left for work, that to me would just be a random sample because everybody has a chance of being selected. They're not picking like every third or every fourth. They're just, whenever they get a chance, they're randomly selecting people. So that would be a random sample. Okay. These two I'd like you to try on your own. So if you need to, go back up and look at our definitions of what the different types of samples were. So letter D says, what type of sample would it be if employees got a phone number to call to complete a survey? And letter E, what type of sample would it be if the boss just asked the first 5 people he met in the hallway? Go ahead and try to find out what type of sampling methods are being used here. Okay, hopefully you're done. If you're not done, pause the video and do it now. So let's see. The first one would be, well, the people are getting a phone number to call. So they don't have to survey. They don't have to complete this survey. So I'm going to call this one self-selected. Because they could call a phone number or they don't have to. Letter E. What type of sampling method would it be if the boss just asked the first 5 people he met in the hallway? Well, if it's just the first 5 people he's meeting, that sounds like a convenience sample because he's not going out of his way to ask randomly. He's just the first 5 people he meets, whoever's right there next to him. So that would be a convenience sample. So now we've got one more problem for you to look at. And here, I want you it says the owners of a computer store survey customers to see whether they should expand their game selection. They survey customers in the game aisle, identify the population, and classify the sampling method. Go ahead, pause the video, do this right now. When you're ready to continue, hit play, and we'll go through it together. Okay, so they're doing a survey, and they're surveying people in the game aisle. So as far as the population could be anybody really in the store, because anybody might be wandering past the game aisle at that time. So it could be the entire store. Okay, and then as far as what type of sampling method is used, well, they're just asking if it's a game company or a computer stores, they're asking if they should expand their game selection. They're asking people in the game aisle. That to me sounds like a convenience survey. They're just picking people in this random area, just whoever's close, whoever's nearby. So I would call this one a convenience sample. The second types of problems we're looking at here is identifying bias. When we're talking about bias, what we mean is how might the survey not give accurate results? For example, a survey was conducted at Lebanon Middle School only during the first few lunches on whether 6th grade students should get to have recess while 7th and 8th grade students remain in class. Is this survey likely to result in a biased sample? Well, at Lebanon Middle School, the first few lunches really only have 6th graders in it, and the 7th and 8th grade students eat lunch later in the day. So if you just asked the first few lunches whether 6th grade should have recess while 7th and 8th grade still has class, would that result in a biased sample? Probably, because if you think about it, the 6th graders would probably want to still go on recess, so they would say, yeah, they should get recess while the 7th and 8th graders are still in class. So as far as this being a biased survey, yeah, this is biased. How about this? Let's use complete sentences here. So, is this survey likely to result in bias? Yes, this survey is likely to result in bias because the first lunches only have 6th grade students. Not all students have an equal chance of getting surveyed. I'm going to say taking the survey. The survey. So I have here, yes, the survey is likely to result in bias because the first lunches only have 6th grade students. Not all students, capital N, not all students have an equal chance of taking the survey. So that would not be very fair for the 7th and 8th graders who don't even get a vote. Letter B. I'd like you to do this question. Tell me if you think there's bias, why or why not. The question says, if Coca-Cola published a report that states that drinking soda is as healthy as drinking a cup of fruit juice, would you trust this survey? Why or why not? Pause the video, do the problem on your own. When you're ready to continue, hit play, and we'll go through it together. And here's the answer I came up with. I said this survey is likely to result in bias because Coca-Cola is a soda company. So by them saying that soda is as healthy as a cup of fruit juice, it might be a lie to get people to drink more soda. So I probably would not believe if Coca-Cola said that soda is as healthy for you as fruit juice, because they're just trying to sell more soda. Now, the third and final type of problem is again trying to understand some bias. So these questions themselves might be biased. It says, identify if the following questions are potentially biased. If so, rewrite the sentence to include no bias. So the first question says, don't you agree that the voting age should be lowered to 16 because many 16-year-olds are responsible and informed? Well, that sounds like a leading question. It's a question that they're trying to push you into the answer by starting with like, don't you agree? Trying to get people to agree. Go, yeah, I do agree. And then they're also throwing in other information that, for example, like many 16-year-olds are responsible and informed. Well, yeah, many might be, but there's also many 16-year-olds that are reckless and are not informed. So they're trying to push you into the answer and go, oh yeah, that's true. So let's see if we can rewrite this sentence, this question, so that there's no bias. So pretty much, you take out all this other stuff that's trying to push you into an answer. So maybe, do you think that the voting age should be lowered to 16? That would be straight up No bias, you're just asking a question. Do you think the voting age should be lowered to 16? That way, people can still make up their own minds. They are using their own information, their own opinions, and you're not pushing them into an answer. Letter B. It says, do you think the city should renovate the local library? Do you see any information in that question that's trying to push people one way or the other to make a decision? I don't see any. Now, if it said, do you think the city should renovate the broken down, old, ugly library? Well, then yeah, because now they're starting to put their opinions into the question. Or they might phrase it another way and say something like, do you think the library should be renovated even though the building is perfectly fine and all the books are being well kept? Well, then in that case, again, they're trying to push you an opinion, and they're putting some other information instead of just the straight up question of, do you think the library should be renovated? So this one here, no bias. I would like you please to look at letter C. Same thing. Identify if you think there's bias, and then try to rewrite the statement so there is no bias. Pause the video, do it on your own. When you're ready to continue, hit play, and we'll go through it together. Okay, so it says, what do you think of the horrible effects of pollution on our wonderful trees? Well, that definitely has some bias because words like horrible and wonderful are trying to push you in a certain direction. Those are opinions. Some people may not think pollution's a bad thing. Some people may not think that trees are wonderful. So those words are opinions, which means this is not an unbiased question. There's some bias in there. So it is bias. Now, how could we rewrite that question without the bias? Well, let's just see what happens if we take out those two words. The two words, they're kind of opinions. What do you think of the effects of pollution on our trees? That right there already sounds much better. I don't think I could actually do any better than that. So I'm going to type it up to, oh, what happened there? I'm going to type this up just to make it a little bit prettier. So, what do you think of the effects of pollution on our trees? That question now has no bias. There's no opinions. There's no opinionated words in there. That would be done. So, we've now looked at a whole bunch of different reasons why a survey might be good or might be bad. They might have these biased questions. They might have a biased sample type. They might be only asking certain people, or for example, if Coca-Cola is putting out a survey, I wouldn't trust that. If you only asked certain groups of students and not other students, well, that's not a very good survey. Okay? So, this next question comes from page 872, number 2. It says, in a survey about Americans' interest in soccer, the first 25 people admitted to a high school soccer game were asked, how interested are you in the world's most popular sport, soccer? So, we want to know, is the sampling method likely to result in a biased sample? So they're asking the sampling method. And the second part is the question itself potentially biased? So is the question biased? And is the sampling method biased? Go ahead, pause the video, do this on your own right now. When you're ready to continue, hit play, and we'll go through it together. Okay, so first off, is the sampling method biased? You're asking the first 25 people admitted into a high school soccer game how they feel about soccer. Well, if those people are going to a soccer game, they probably like soccer. If they don't like soccer, they wouldn't be going. So as far as part A is concerned, yes, this seems like a biased sample, because you're asking people going to see a soccer game if they like soccer. That'd be like asking people going to a Metallica concert if they like Metallica. Well, if they're going to the concert, they paid money to go there, they probably like it. Part B says, is the question potentially biased? Explain your answer. Well, let's look at the question itself. How interested are you in the world's most popular sport, soccer? Well, are there any words in there that seem like an opinion? I think this world's most popular sport, which, by the way, it's technically true, it's the sport that's played the most around the world, but it still sounds like an opinion by leading us into it, saying, oh, this sport's really popular. How do you feel about this? So if you just asked, how interested are you in soccer, that now sounds like you're not leading to an answer. You're not pushing them and saying, oh, how do you like this awesome sport of soccer? Well, they go, oh, I think it's awesome. Okay? So how interested are you in soccer? That would be a much better question. I'll write it out. So how interested are you in soccer? So that would be a better question with no bias. There's no opinions thrown in there. So, last thing for the day, how do you identify populations and sampling methods? So just talk a little bit, write a sentence or two, talking about some of the different sampling methods, some of the biases that are present in populations or sampling methods. Because really that's the goal here. We're talking about biased samples, checking to see if a survey is a good survey or a bad survey, a good question or a bad question. So pause the video, do this on your own. When you're ready to continue, hit play, and we'll go through it together. And here's what I came up with. Since, again, we're talking about bias here, I said, when looking for biased populations, check to see if everyone has an equal opportunity to be selected. If not, then there could be some bias. I'm not saying there has to be bias, but I'm saying there could be if not everyone gets an equal chance to take the survey or gets an equal chance of being selected. And then a question might be biased if there are leading questions or if someone puts their own opinions into the question, like talking about the horrible pollution and the wonderful trees or the old, dirty, rotten local library building. Well, by throwing those opinions in there, you're trying to sway other people's opinions. And lastly, we've got our homework down at the bottom. So the homework here comes from page 873, numbers 1 through 17, odds. This has been lesson 13.5. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.